right, what do I got to sell here? Sort of Justice. Hey, that's actually pretty cool. Wait, what day is it? Oh man, my Blue Beetle review. Oh shit. Alright, I'll be honest, I actually saw Blue Beetle opening night, but I decided to write up this review for it a couple days later, not because I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3.
On my way.
No, that's not why. But because I wanted to just let it stir in my head, you know, in case my feelings for it changed at all. Because, you know, to be frank, I actually liked this movie quite a bit after leaving the theater. But now that it's been a while and I've let my thoughts on it marinate a bit, I can now safely say that I still like this movie. I think it's cute. I think it's alright. I think it's a pretty good time.
This kind of thing happen often?
So with that little intro out of the way, let's just cut to the chase here, alright, with the positives. The first of which being that this movie is really, really funny. But, you know what? Actually, let me preface that. I saw this movie in a packed theater. Filled to the brim. Like, let me tell, like, as full as the theater could possibly be. And the theater going experience was so rowdy and so lively. And the room was just full of electricity that it made every joke land tenfold. You know, the whole room was constantly laughing out loud at this movie. People just shouting things and clapping and cheering the whole movie. And of course, some people may find that, you know, very obnoxious and very annoying to have a crowd like that. But for me, I thought it added to the experience for sure. And I actually saw this movie with some friends of mine down from Miami. And, you know, us being Hispanic and the crowd largely being Hispanic as well. There's just a lot here to laugh and point out and just enjoy with this movie. I mean, when El Chapulín Colorado shows up, bro, the crowd was fucking dying. My friends were dying. Just little bits like that are scattered all throughout this movie. There's a lot here to enjoy. As for some other positives, though, I thought the CG was pretty solid in this movie. And the visuals in general, I thought the city that they were in, I forget the name, really interesting looking city. I mean, it was very cyberpunky. It's nothing that you haven't seen before, but still, for a comic book movie, it looked pretty cool. The soundtrack and the score, fantastic. The score honestly surprised me. It was very synthy and it kind of felt retro-y in a way, and I thought it added a lot to the movie, which the movie in general was just kind of drenched in this neon glow and these neon lights anyway. So it kind of added to like the mise en scène, if you will, if you want to get a little pretentious, or added to the environment and the kind of aesthetic to it, I guess, if I'm going to put it more plainly. Wow, I am a douche. As for the cast, I thought the cast largely did very solid. You know, everybody did their job pretty well. Nobody really stood out to me. Except for, I guess, on a positive note, I thought Nana's character and George Lopez in particular, his character Randy, I think his name is, just really good stuff. Scene stealers for sure.
I forgot how bad it looks.
I've seen worse.
Where?
You don't want to know.
Jaime's family in general, the family dynamic in this movie, super strong. If anything, I think that might be one of my biggest positives for this movie, is the family aspect is so strong. I think this movie cares and loves so deeply for its characters, and it shows for sure on screen with the performances. I also thought the lead of the movie, who I'm not very familiar with at all, I thought they did a fantastic job at carrying this movie. Similar to what I said about Ezra Miller in The Flash, I think they hit all the beats in this movie. They're whimsical, they're excited to be a superhero, they can get really serious and angry when they need to. It's a very solid performance. And I guess some closing thoughts on the positives here. Again, you know, more broad than specific, but I thought the pacing was pretty good. Maybe it starts off a little slow in comparison to other comic book movies, but I thought it did a really good job establishing the family dynamic and the characters and just their motivations and why they're doing certain things. I thought all that was pretty good. But before I move on, one thing I failed to mention earlier is Jaime's sister, Milagro, I believe her name is. I thought she was really funny, and I enjoyed their relationship together. Unfortunately, she does kind of get like sidelined throughout the movie, especially towards the end. But in the first half, really enjoyed their little like brother-sister dynamic. And before we move on to the more negative aspects of the film, they're not all negative, but I guess more my critiques, I really want to harp on this point that this movie is very fun, and I don't think you'll have a bad time with it. I really don't. Even if it's not amazing, which I don't think it's amazing. I think it's super fun, very energetic, has a lot of personality and a lot of style. I think you'll like it, and I recommend seeing it at least once, especially if you're a comic book fan. If you're just like, you know, some art house guy, you're probably going to hate this movie if I'm being completely honest with you. But other than that, I'd recommend it. Check it out. As for my issues with the movie, and I'll start up front with the strongest one that I have, the villains are really, really weak in this movie. Both of them. The main villain of the movie, played by Susan Sarandon, I believe her name is, she's just a business lady, and I don't know anything about her. You know, her personality traits or her character traits or really her motivations. Well, actually, she has like the weakest motivations. She's kind of just a bitch. And that's really all the movie gives her. However, I will say, this movie, similar to The Flash in this way, feels like a throwback comic book movie, similar to like Venom did as well. That could really be a positive or a negative for some people. I want to say most people see that as a negative nowadays. But perhaps that's why the villain is kind of like, she's just really cliche. You know, she doesn't really have a lot going for her. She kind of just shows up she's not even in the movie that much. She shows up every now and again, and she's just a bitch, and then she fucking leaves. She's the main villain of the movie, and she doesn't do anything. She's just like mean. She's just a businesswoman, and she talks shit, and she walks around and leaves. I mean, this is like all the footage I have of her, and this is from the officially released trailers. They don't even care enough to even advertise that this woman is the main villain of the movie. They don't care about her. Now, the other villain in this movie, his name is Carapax, I believe. Crazy name, by the way. Never heard of it. Sounds cool, though. Still crazy. He's kind of like the big, bad, evil henchman who does all the bidding of the main villain. You know, it's like the archetype that, prime example, they just did this in John Wick 4. You have Bill Skarsgård, the guy who just talks shit and doesn't really do anything but die like a bitch at the end of the movie. He's got like this cool he's not even that cool, but he's got this henchman that shows up throughout the whole movie and keeps beating John Wick's ass. That's this guy in this movie. He kind of just shows up every once in a while and throws down and then kind of just fucks off. And no spoilers, but with Carapax, I thought his characterization was also really weak. Until like a certain point in the movie, it comes out of nowhere. For me at least, it came out of nowhere. They kind of just they lore dump this guy's entire life story through this crazy psychedelic montage. And it's kind of unfortunate because that montage gives Carapax so much characterization, and they hold out on it until the last couple minutes of the fucking movie. Like, this dude has been running around beating ass the whole movie, and yet he only gets a little bit of characterization at the very end. It's such a shame. It really is. And I guess while we're on the subject about crazy montages, super random side note, I had this thought in the theater, and I'm having it again right now. When this movie opens up, there's like a montage that reminds me of fucking King Kong versus Godzilla. It looks like this. And if you watch something like this, you know you're in for like kind of like a schlocky fun time at the movies. You know what I mean? It'll be kind of cheesy and corny, but you're in for a ride. You know, it's gonna be fun when you watch some stupid shit like this. Moving on. Carapax was also really weak, I thought. You know, I don't even think he's really that intimidating. No spoilers, but with the first time they fight, he's not even that scary. You know what I mean? I don't know. And then when they fight again at the end, I'm like, he's still not even really that scary. He doesn't even talk until like halfway through the movie. The guy literally just keeps showing up in the movie and doesn't fucking talk ever. And then the first time he talks, he says like 2 words and then fucking leaves. I mean, the guy who plays him did fine in the role. It's just the character in general just didn't have a lot to work with. I found him to be very weak. He also just looks like an Advent soldier from XCOM 2. And I don't really think that's a deep cut reference. XCOM 2 is pretty popular, right? But whatever. Beyond all that, I'm sorry. Remember when I said earlier that my strongest critique is the villains in this movie? I actually lied. My strongest critique in this movie is the plot structure and just the story. This movie has no surprises at all. This is the most standard, most cliche, most safe comic book story / movie that you've probably ever seen. And I say ever seen because you've seen this movie done like 1,000 times by now. And we're still doing the same fucking story with the same structure. It's so tired. Can we stop doing it? But again, don't let that disguise the fact that I still think this movie is very fun, which that tells you how fun and how funny this movie is. That even though this movie is so bland from a story and plot structure standpoint, everything is just exactly where it needs to be, beat for beat. You know exactly where this movie is going. It's still really fun, okay? But it has every trope you've ever seen in a comic book origin story. Like, every single one. He can't fly, and he tries to say funny words where he tries to use his powers or tries to fly.
Go, Web! Fly! Up, up, and away, Web! Shazam! Go! Go! Go, Web, go!
He has a moment where he falls out of the sky because the suit isn't working. I mean, it's even filmed the exact same way they did it in Iron Man 1. There's a moment where he goes, I'm bulletproof.
I'm bulletproof.
Shoot him again.
Oh, yeah. Here. Go. Both of you. Come on. Go to town.
And his relationship with the suit is kind of similar to Spider-Man Homecoming, or similar to Venom, or similar to Jarvis. There's even dialogue in this movie somewhere along the line of, I've been waiting 15 years for this moment, and the power of the Scarab is finally mine. Like, holy fuck, you cannot get more cliche than that, okay? Respectfully. There's no surprises in this movie at all, aside from the jokes and the representation, but the story and the plot structure, wow, you have seen this 1,000 times before. You know, like, I don't mean to be like a dick or anything, but you know, every comic book movie kind of shares the same DNA. They're all kind of the same, you know, and I'm kind of tired of people saying that they're not, and people want to shit on comic book movies nowadays, when in reality, they've always been the same, and the fatigue has always been there. You were just blind to it because you were waiting for fucking Avengers Endgame. Whatever, I said it. I'm sorry. The truth hurts. Anyway, sorry for that really random tangent. Very red pill of me, which, again, I still like comic book movies, right? I still like this movie, but whatever. Moving on. Sorry, I'm fucking stupid. Another negative, small negative, I just kind of want to address it. There's a part in this movie that involves a fart joke, and let me tell you, no one laughed. Not a single soul in that theater laughed. Like, in the movie, when this happens, there's a big button that says bug fart. And I thought that was really funny. But then when he presses it and the bug starts farting, it wasn't very funny. Can we stop doing fart jokes? They're not fucking funny. Stop doing them. Speaking of not laughing, the Batman as a fascist joke that we get in the trailer.
It's like Batman stuff. Batman's a fascist.
No one laughed in my theater. Dead silent. It was abysmal. Honestly, I felt kind of bad for the movie. I was like, Jesus, I thought this joke would kind of land. Because when I saw the trailer, people kind of laughed. But in the theater, no one fucking laughed. No one cared.
You've begun handling situations that once upon a time were a job for Superman.
Hey, if the Justice League's too busy, I'm happy to pick up the slack.
Why am I still waving? I look like an idiot. Scarab, get us out of there.
Another critique I have is that I just don't think there's enough suit talking in this movie. The suit doesn't really play big enough part in this movie. Like talking wise, personality wise, the suit is alive and sentient. They make that point very clear. And I know growing up, I saw some, animated series where Blue Beetle shows up and he's constantly talking to himself and being like a fucking weirdo, constantly arguing with the suit.
Cannot scan contents. Not compatible. Not compatible again? What does that even mean?
Blue, what do you mean? Who are you talking to?
That very rarely happens in this movie. It kind of happens more towards the later half of the movie, but I kind of just wish it happened more. The suit does not play enough of a role in this movie, and you know what? Let's stay on the suit, because the suit is never really explained, ever. There's so many points in this movie where the suit kind of just fucking dies and just stops working in the most inconvenient of times, or he gets shocked by electricity and the suit turns off, or whatever, and they never explain how the suit works and why it turned off, or why this human technology is able to fuck with this thing. Never explained one time. He just gets like tased and falls over and the suit doesn't work anymore. Like, what the fuck is that about? Can we get an explanation on that? Can I have more movie? And these next 2 points, small little critiques, but they're my closing thoughts here before this video ends. Jennifer's character, Jaime's love interest. Spoiler warning from here on out. Honestly, it's not that important, but spoiler warning. Skip to this, I guess, if you don't want to see it. I don't know, whatever. So, she's actually the daughter of the original Blue Beetle, right? And, which I didn't even know, but apparently there's been 3 different Blue Beetles over, like, the course of history. The original one is, like, in the 1930s or something crazy. I didn't even know. That's actually insane.
I don't know why I said through the course of history as if fucking Blue Beetle's been here since, like, the ancient times.
Anyway, which, by the way, that's another cliche that this movie has. Didn't they do that in Ant-Man as well? And I'm sure they've done it in other movies. Whatever, moving forward, there's a part in this movie where Jennifer reminisces about her family and reminisces about her dad and her mom and this house that they used to live in. And I thought that section of the movie was kind of interesting. They were giving her more to do. But then there comes a point in the movie where they kind of just have to use her dad's gadgets to go save, Jaime, the new current Blue Beetle. And she kind of just, like, scoffs at it. She's like, you want to play with my dad's toys? Only a few scenes ago when she was reminiscing, she was, like, crying her eyes out. You know what I mean? And could fight against Jaime. But now she's, like, lightheartedly like, let's go play with my dad's toys. I thought it would have been cool if there was a moment where she kind of faced her past and sees her dad's gadgets and is like, you know, I'm going to use these gadgets for what he would have done in this situation. I'm going to do what he would have done. I'm going to go and save Jaime. I'm going to go save the Blue Beetle. But no, it's kind of played off as a joke. She just kind of grabs her dad's gadgets and is like, let's go play with my dad's toys. Let's go save, you know, let's go fight the bad guys. And I thought it was kind of lame. Like, I thought there could have been a really strong character moment there for her. And it just wasn't really there. Because, again, she was just reminiscing about how traumatic her past was. That her dad was never home and he was a crime fighter and it was crazy. You know, like, I don't know. I think there was a little bit of a moment there. But that's pretty much it. Those are my general thoughts about this movie. I give it a recommendation, though. Even with everything I just said, I still like this movie a lot. I think it's fun. I do think it's a one and done, though. I don't think this movie has a lot of replay value. I think it's a good, fun, one-time watch. You'll probably never think about it again. But I feel like that about most comic book movies. You know what I mean? I think if you're not a team-up movie, you're going to watch it once and be done with it, respectively. I don't know. That's just my take. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, guys.